Welcome in, builders. This week we're taking a look at Pyrene, time of the Akelarre. Pyrene was once a kingdom of cavern-dwelling humans and their allies, the Sorganak witches and the Gentilak giants. Now the humans have more or less abandoned their cavernous realm and established a feudal kingdom in the surrounding mountains. The young kingdom was drawn into a long-lasting war with Abyssia and suffered heavy losses. The last of the Gentilak and Basajunak died in defense of the Pyrene caves, but the Abyssians were defeated. With the loss of their mightiest mages and warriors, new powers established themselves. Lasting exposure to Abyssian magic had prepared the nation for a sinister reshaping. From some dark woodland came the Ackerbelts, the Black Goats. Their influence slowly transformed the nation into a nation of dark rituals and bloody ceremonies. The Ackerbelts seduced the Sorganak and made them abandon their former mistress and embrace blood magic. Now, even the priesthood have adapted blood magic and sacrifice humans to further the goals of the nation. Recently, the dark practices have drawn the attention of Marignon and its inquisitors. So this is a nation that has a major transformation between the early age and the middle age. Gone are our days of our glorious cavern empire and cave cows and the riches of the Underdark. Now we are on the surface, and ironically enough, we have progressed quite well, especially considering we started off as just stone-using cavemen, and we had just the tiniest amount of iron use that was taught to us by the giants. And now we're making heavy cavalry. So quite a good come up there. However, we have been corrupted greatly, and we have lost all the giants, and we have inherited the Black Goats, the Ackerbelts. And these are not your friends. These are not your friends. Let's check out the national features. We are humans of caveman descent with dark vision and elemental resistance. This is the Bechlarides that we had in the early age, and they make up, I believe, all of our infantry. Yeah, they make up all of our infantry and our mages. So the base chassis is really good. We'll talk about that when we get there, but having dark vision and fire and cold resist with the very little trade-off is really nice. For military, we have human infantry, we have crossbows, we have knights, and we have sacred Mouflon knights. So all the hallmarks of Middle Age are present here. Magic-wise, we have blood, nature, air, and some earth and fire. So I don't want to call this a good spread. We have a okay amount of variety with nature and air specifically, with a sprinkle of the earth and fire and some blood. We're not as wide pathing as many, and we're not as high pathing as many, but we're competent at what we're trying to do. Our priests are average. Our best priest is a level 2, and we can perform blood sacrifices. So a priest with blood magic can sacrifice blood slaves to increase your dominion. For scales and blesses, we have a turmoil limit of +1. Building-wise, we build standard forts of the era, which in this case means castles. For sites, we have the Cathedral of Emerald. This is our Sacred Knight recruitment and a fire gym. We have the Caves of Pyrene. This is our less advanced brethren and an earth gym. And we have the Pleasure Orchard. This is the Ackerbelts and a nature, air, and 2 blood slaves. So quite a decent spread of very useful gyms. Very useful. Units and sacreds. For units and sacreds, we have a pretty darn good lineup. Let's start with our cave brethren. These are probably the weakest that we have. So the base Bechlaride can be recruited in our capital and in all non-fort caves. This is the standard dude. He's got a great club. He has 12 gold, 2 resources, 4 recruitment points. Our Bechlaride chassis has slightly higher HP, so 13 HP, 12 strength, and regular attack defense. And we kind of pay for that with losing 1 magic resist from standard. So a 9 magic resist isn't horrible, but it is notable. And what do we get for all that? In addition to the extra strength and HP, which are great stats, we get 5 fire, 5 cold resist. We have mountain survival, we have dark vision, and this troop specifically is undisciplined. Do note in addition to our Great Club, we have Sticks and Stones. While Sticks and Stones isn't good against anything with armor, unarmored things or things that at least don't have a hat, that can be pretty darn decent. And our Great Clubs can be surprisingly killy with 10 attack and 22 damage. You can bust through some pretty heavy armor with that. Armor for ourselves, however, is just furs, no hat. These guys are whatever. I do see circumstances where you may recruit these, especially if you can get them non-forted. From our capital, probably not. Next up, we have the Betride. This is the same in capital and non-fort caves. He trades out his Great Club for a Stone Spear. I like the Stone Spear a lot less. It is length 3 compared to the length 2 of the Great Club. Same attack at 10, and it is 14 piercing damage. We have better options, and stone just isn't cutting it in the age of iron and steel. Otherwise, this is the same troop we basically just looked at. Probably not going to see too much use. He's also undisciplined. Next, we have the Bethride Warrior. This is a slightly better equipped one. Essentially, he has traded out the furs for a leather hauberk. He's given up the sticks and stones. He still has a stone spear. Again, probably not using this guy. Leather hauberk is 8 protection. The furs are 7. However, we take our resources from 2 to 3, so we're getting 50% less of these guys. I'm just not seeing that. Again, though, they can be recruited in non-forts down in the cave layer, so maybe I'd see getting some of these, maybe. It's unfortunate we don't have the net guys, our commando unit, anymore. Moving up to better units, we have the Pyrene crossbowmen. I will say, while it is amazing, and I love that we actually have a crossbow, and a crossbow that has dark vision, that's something kind of special, and some resistances, that's also great. A little extra HP, maybe he can take an extra hit. He has armor, ringmail cuirass, and a leather cap. And he's not like stupid expensive, 12 gold, 8 resources, 9 recruitment points. However, he only has 8 precision. Crossbows do give you 2 extra, so he's shooting as if he had a 10, but that is pretty notable. Most human crossbowmen have 10 precision, and then they get a +2 on top of that. So these are going to be a little bit imprecise for you. However, that being said, large enough numbers, you can fight in the shade, as it were. So very usable. We do have access, although limited, to fire, so we could give them fire arrows, nature, so we could give them poison arrows, and we do have wind, so we can make them more accurate. So a usable unit, but just note that precision is kind of a little sad on their part. Next, we have the Pyrenean Spearman. If you want spears, this would probably be your preference. This is same chassis that we've been looking at. Our resources have jumped up to 15 with 9 recruitment points. We are now a more professional army here. 12 HP, 11 strength, 10 attack, 12 defense. Still have that magic resistance at 9, and our morale is 11. So not the worst, not the best there. For a light-ish, I say ish because we have 13 protection. So probably let's call this a medium troop. In line combat, we do have a spear. This is actually a little better than it might otherwise sound because a lot of people have moved to length 2 swords or length 1 swords. So being length 3 is actually a little bit better, I think, in middle age. The downside, however, is 14 piercing damage is going to struggle against heavier troops to actually pierce and deal damage. Armor-wise, we have a chainmail cuirass, an iron cap, and a shield. It's just the standard shield. These guys are all right. If you want to use them for your line troops, I think that would be totally fine. Especially if you're fighting somebody who has less than length 3, I think that's where these guys would shine the best. Next, we have a Pyrenean Footman. This guy is armored the same, however, he's traded out his standard shield for a kite shield. Kite shields are better, frankly. 19 protection shields, very, very nice. Decent parry. And he's traded out his spear for a broadsword, speaking of that trend of moving to length 1 or 2 swords. So our attack has gone up to 11, our damage is up to 17 slashing. That's pretty decent. Against all but the heaviest of troops, he'll do pretty well in his line combat. And he has the bonus of having some extra HP, having some extra strength, and having fire resistance and cold resistance, mountain survival, and dark vision. These guys are pretty decent. 12 gold, 19 resources, 9 recruitment. A little bit on the pricier side, but not horrendously so. I'm going to skip this guy and do the one that's similar. This is the Pyrenian Men-at-Arms. He is similarly equipped, however, he is slightly more heavily armored. He has a chainmail hauberk, iron cap, kite shield, so our protection is up to 15. That's 15 body, 16 on the head. And he still maintains all of our racials, and he picks up Bodyguard too. This is pretty nice because we do have blood hunting that we are going to be doing. And as we've seen lately, there are a lot of bad things that happen to blood hunters, and our best blood hunters are very, very hard to get and expensive. So we really would prefer not to lose them. So a squad of bodyguards that are specifically bodyguard skilled is very, very nice. Otherwise, 17 gold, 23 resources, 18 recruitment. A bit on the pricey side, but not horrendously so. 14 HP, good protection. These guys are totally fine. I don't know whether I'd use those guys over the Pyrene footmen. 23 resources, 19. It's a 4 resource difference. So if you can afford the extra resources and still get good numbers, I think I would go heavier troop. Just because kite shield plus decent armor means you might be able to take some crossbow fire without withering. Otherwise, I think these guys are still totally usable. However, I think this guy kind of steals the show, the Pyrenian swordsman. Chainmail hauberk, iron cap, so he's the heavier armored troop. However, he's traded out his broadsword and kite shield for a great sword. Length 2, 12 attack, and 24 slashing damage. So against even, I won't say the heaviest, but against very heavily armored troops, we can cut them down. This is especially useful if you have to fight heavy cav and we don't really have anything else down here that screams, I'm going to kill heavy cav. This guy can do it. So for me, ideally, I would probably want some cheaper guys in a line formation that will take the charge, and then these guys either filtering in from behind or maybe flanking on the sides. Do note that Encumbrance 5 isn't actually even that bad. If we look here, 7, 5, 6, it's not that bad. These guys are pretty good. 12 attacks, fine. We have some resistances, that's pretty handy. 21 resources is not going to break the bank. These are good troops. I quite like these. Next up, we have the Pyrenian Knight. This is a horse riding knight. We use an actual lance, and then we switch out to a broadsword. We are armored with full chainmail, full helmet, and a kite shield. So 18 protection on our rider. And if we check our horse, we have plate barding, which does give us head protection 21, body 18. So this is a totally acceptable knight unit. He does have fire and cold resist, although do note that your horse does not. Pretty darn good. This is usable. I tend to not use these too much because our sacred is also heavy cav, but this is a very usable unit. If you have a need for them outside of your capital, I could totally see getting and using these. Next up is our sacred, the Emerald Knight. This is a cap-only sacred, and he is pretty decent. This is same chassis we've been seeing, with the addition of sacred, of course, wielding a lance and broadsword. This rider uses full plate mail, a full helmet, and a kite shield. So 21 protection, and that's 21 on head and body. And if you were to proc a shield block, that would be 40 protection. So very, very nice there. His mount is a mouflon. This is like a large sheep ram type creature. I guess it technically says sheep, so a large sheep. And it's an all-right chassis. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the fire resist. Also does not have the dark vision, but does maintain cold resist. Also provides a supply bonus of 5. So having a squad of knights will help feed your army, which is kind of cool. The mount itself is undisciplined if he loses the rider, but 13 morale's okay. Unfortunately, it is a full animal, so only 6 magic resistance. This is the biggest weakness here. Going back to the knight himself, 10 magic resist, so he's actually slightly better than we normally are. And 13 morale's pretty good. Good strength, good attack skill. Very nice one. I don't think you need a huge bless for these guys. In my test games, what I mostly noticed was they didn't die. They actually racked up afflictions. So I think there's a strong case to be made for a recuperation bless. More than anything else. Maybe repel also. We'll talk about that more when we get to blesses. But overall, I like this sacred. Just do note, this is a cap only, and he's very expensive. 70 gold, 57 resources, 46 recruitment points. So In the early game, if you have a bad cap circle, you're not going to be able to get a lot of these out. So just plan accordingly. Maybe this is not a place for a Hellbless. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. As for heroes, we have no heroes. Illwinter, please get that pass done where every nation needs heroes. And while you're at it, it would be amazing if every nation had a multi-recruit hero that was flavorful for the nation and usable. That would be very, very cool. Moving into Commanders, we have kind of a double thing here. So we've got some normal Bekthrides, and we have the more, let's call them civilized Bekthrides. We have the Pyrene Castilian. This is a 75 leadership, heavily armored leader. He does have our standard traits for the Bekthrides. In addition, he has castle defense bonus 10. That is very, very nice. That gives him a castle defense of 5.7 just by himself. Great. 70 gold, 23 resources, 1 recruitment point. Not really going to break the bank, so that's not too bad. Unfortunately, leadership 75 is not the best, which is a little sad. I wish he was at 100. That being said, he's totally usable. He's decently equipped, so not going to just fall over and die instantly to anything that gets to him. Next up, we have the Pyrenian Marquis. This is a much better leader because he not only has 100 leadership, but also has a map move of 14 compared to 13, so can help you get a little bit further. Standard traits for our race. He is similar to our knight and is equipped the same. Pretty usable. 140 gold's a bit pricey. 58 resources is a bit pricey, but I do find these guys more survivable than the Castilians, generally speaking. And just the 100 leadership, I think, is worth it anyways. Next up, we have a Pyrenian Priest. This is a priest level 1 sacred. He does have a 50% chance of having blood 1. I would probably not use these guys to do blood hunting. If I got one of these guys and he did have blood, use him to craft things or use him for blood sacrificing would be my main uses there. Next up, we have the Pyrenian Bishop. This is a more useful one. He is blood 1 guaranteed. He is priest level 2, and he has a 100% chance of fire, earth, or blood. Blood 2 is alright. If you gave him a Sanguine Dowsing Rod, you could blood hunt with him, although I feel we have better options. If you got the fire, that's a decent crosspath for certain spells. Ditto with the earth, although I don't think earth 1's going to do it for you. Generally speaking, I don't think you're getting this guy for his magic. You're getting him for blessing. You're getting him for blood sacrificing more than anything else. 50 leadership also. Does have magic leadership, does have undead. Remember, undead leadership also is for demons. Next up, we have the Sorgina. Not quite sure how that's pronounced. Apologies to my Basque audience. She's pretty darn good. Very different than what we had in the early age. Remember, they have been corrupted by those goats. And we now have Fire 1, Air 2, Blood 2, no random. We do shapeshift into a black cat. The black cat does have stealth. That can be rather useful. We have flying. Very nice. Mountain survival, forest survival, 100% dark vision, and storm immunity. All really good things that we can make use of. She also has 22 map move, and remember, it is flying, so that's pretty good. Cost-wise, 260 gold is not breaking the bank for a 5-path mage that is not slow to recruit. Only takes 1 resource. The weakness here, however, we have human HP. 10 HP, a single arrow, and definitely a crossbow bolt will end your day. You have no armor on either. So I do feel like you want to get Mistform and or Air Shield up ASAP, just to make sure you don't have an oopsie. 16 magic resistance is good. 13 morale is okay. They do have a smidgen of leadership. 20 leadership, 50 magic leadership, 20 undead leadership. This is probably going to be the main workhorse mage, both for combat magic and for research. It's a little unfortunate because at 260 to recruit, not slow to recruit, but not fast either, and 208 gold per year upkeep, you only get 15 research. So not even close to what I consider efficient research, but we don't have great options here. I should pull back and say for the bishop, he has 9 research for 92. He would be efficient, but he doesn't really have a ton of combat use. So I'm a little leery about getting 10 or 20 of these guys because unless you're fighting somebody you can banish, they're not really very combat viable. If you have a great way to use these in combat that I don't see, let me know, but I'm really not feeling these guys. I would rather have inefficient but combat ready mages in most circumstances. Next up, we have the Akelarre Scout. Can be recruited in the capital and all non-cave forts. So do non-fort caves, in case I said that wrong. So do note, we do have a scout, but he's from cap only unless we can get down into the cave. So your other forts will not be able to pick this guy up. Next, we have the Akelarre Champion. Can be recruited in capital and all non-fort caves. Probably you're not using this guy unless you're doing cave recruitment, and then maybe you grab a couple of them just to ferry guys around. Otherwise, completely unremarkable and not particularly useful, especially because he's undisciplined himself. Next, we have the Emerald Count. This is a cap-only sacred mounted commander, very similar to our Emerald Knights down below. He is priest level 1, so you could have a few of them plus one of these go out and try to expand, depending on what your bless is. Other than that, he is very, very nice as a leader. 100 leadership, has that 21 protection. Do note that he has higher protection than our other mounted one. I do like these guys. I do tend to get them. Not too much to say about that. Has the same map move as your Mouflon, so make good match there. And is higher than the Marquis, so another reason to use him. I think even without a bless, you're probably going to use these guys. Next up, we have the Ackerbelts. This is kind of important. He is recruitable in our capital and non-fort forests. So if you have extra forests that are not forted, you can get extras of these. However, they are slow to recruit at 4 recruitment points. And a non-fort forest means it's going to be 4 turns to recruit a single one of these. Otherwise, it is a cap-only mage. So 1 every other turn, or in a forest, 1 every 4 turns. That's a long time to have to wait to get your main, what I would argue is your main mage. I don't know. Maybe the Signita are closer to your main mage. But comes in with Earth 1, Nature 2, Blood 3, a random 110% chance of Earth, Nature, and Blood. So quite nice. Earth 2 gets you to Earth Power, which is you're off and running. Nature 3 gets you to Summon Strength of Gia. That's off and running. Blood 4 is amazing. He also has Blood Searcher 1. So at bare minimum, he searches as if he was a Blood 4 mage. It was significantly noticeable when I was blood hunting with these guys versus lower people. You just get way better returns on that. 19 research, but you're not going to get these guys to have them sit around and research, especially at their 360 gold per year upkeep. They are stealthy. That's always nice to have. Forest survival, they have recuperation built in. They're essentially like the blood pans from Pangea. Supply bonus of 20, that's from our nature. We are Beastmaster of +1 and Adept Crossbreeder. So if you like the crossbreeding spell, you can get some bonus out of that. Do note they are 450 gold each, but remember they're at least slow to recruit or like double slow to recruit. This actually isn't too bad once you get up and running. We have decent HP. The other stats don't matter particularly. Good magic resistance, good morale, not great protection. We are not wearing any armor, so having a self buff of something or putting on a piece of armor is probably a pretty good investment. You're going to feel it if you lose these guys, and they bring a lot of buffing spells that we otherwise cannot bring into combat. So strength things, weapon buffs, protection buffs, different battlefield things. Very nice. Higher blood if we need it, and that reduces the amount of sabbathing we need to do. So a very important mage. We're also our primary blood hunter, most likely. Do note, not sacred, so not going to be taking any of your blesses. Finally, we have the Pyrene monk. Can be recruited in non-fort provinces. He is a priest level 1. He has fire, earth, nature, and blood, so pretty decent spread there, although other than nature 1, I'm not too in love with these guys because you would need a gem or an item to get to your buff spells to make them more useful. They do have research 7, and they are only 42. So this is your efficient researcher guy, but remember, it's non-fort provinces. So you need a lab and a temple that is not forted to be able to recruit these guys, and even then, they're slow to recruit. However, we may want to be putting labs everywhere anyways, so this may not be quite as bad as I'm kind of selling it here. And for 42 gold, getting 7 research ability is pretty darn efficient. So these guys kind of scream to me magic scales. We'll see about them. 105 gold also is a pretty good deal there. Who would I make my profit? Well, we only have a holy or a priest level 2, so we're not getting any holy 4s. So I would most likely go for an emerald count. It's our highest mobility, highest protection combo. If you wanted just mobility, the Sorgina would be better at 22 map move, but I feel like having the extra survivability is probably worthwhile. And if you're not using him in combat, he really doesn't have a ton to do. So a perfect chassis for a profit. National items and spells. We have one national item. If we go in here to forge, all. Oh goodness, I should have pre-found it. Oh, wow, I got it in one. We have the Witch's Ointment at lesser magic item that has level 3 crafting. And this is a pretty decent item. It grants you flying. Fly speed is 20. It grants you storm immunity. It costs, you need a blood mage of level 2, air mage level 1. Costs 10 blood slaves and 5 air gems. While I don't think I would spam these, this isn't terrible. Yeah, giving this to some certain mages that you have that are not flying, so the Ackerbelts or others, or a thug or something, this has some uses. And while this isn't cheap, it's also not like stupid expensive. So I think this is all right. I will call out, of course, we are very interested in sanguine dowsing rods so that we could blood hunt better. We're also interested in things like cornucopias or fire in a jar or earth stones or lifelong protection. This is an interesting one. It's a battle summon of 1 to 2 imps. That's pretty interesting. There also is the soul contract. Soul contact summons a devil. Can be pretty nice to pump these out. Do note it's a tainted item, so you can never take it out, and you may get killed by a blood horror. It's also very expensive. You need a blood 3 mage and 75 blood slaves, fire 1 and 5 fire gems, but you can produce devils forever with that. Mileage may vary. This is pretty nerfed from Dominions 5. For magic spells, we have one national spell, and that is at Conjuration 6. We have Sind. I'm going to call this the Axe. This is interesting. It is a ethereal, I think it's an ox, technically. Let me double check. What are you, friendo? Yeah, I'm going to call it an ox, I suppose. A bull spirit. They're okay. They have fire resistance 25. They're ethereal tramplers. Do note that ethereal tramplers deal half damage on tramples, so it's not quite as good as it otherwise might sound. However, he does have fire shield with AP 8. If you could find a way to give him protection, which do note he doesn't have spirit form, so you can hit him with protection spells. An ethereal unit with a fire shield that's running around trampling is a great target for people to burn themselves to death on that fire shield. So if you're fighting lots of long dead or mannequins, this would be an amazing piece against those. Do note, here, let's finish his stats. So 38 HP is all right. If he can't trample, he does have 22 strength, although he's not likely to hit much of anything. He has good magic resist and decent morale. Do note that the spell, however, this is not just a straight summons. This is a remote assassination attempt, and it is a range 4. So it emerges from its cave abode during storms and bad weather to punish those who've angered their mistresses. So you can remote attack with this guy, and he's good enough that like low province might lose to him actually. And if he survives, you actually get the unit. So he's pretty interesting and pretty useful. Not nation defining or anything. I guess it should also be noted, he only costs air gems. So air 3, so a little hard to get to, but if you do, he's 6 air gems. That's not too bad. He's okay. For other magic for this nation, I definitely think you want summon earth power, summon storm power, phoenix power, all those goodies. We might want some other summons from up here just to spend those extra gems. In alteration, We would like to be able to give ourselves mist form or buff our armies in mist form. We do have access to Sabbaths on our air mages, so we could go all the way up to, what is it called? Not Army of Mists. I always miss. Yeah, Army of Mist. This is very, very powerful if you could get this out. And it's not that bad to get up to that level. In addition, we do have nature and earth, so other protection, self-buff things, Mistform for troops and smaller ones. Protective winds can be rather useful, gives air shield to units. Pretty good stuff there. Also in nature, summoning trees can be useful. Barkskin Swarm, of course. Howl, things like that. All good things. Also, I'd like to point out that our Acrobolts can use transformation. Transformation in most of the chassis does not have any upkeep. So if you get lucky and get a good chassis, you can transform off his high upkeep and have a upkeep-free, quite good caster. Evocation, I'm not in love with on this nation. Do note we have access to Breath of the Dragon pretty easily. This is an armor negating poison magic damage spell. That can be something rather nice. Also, from Alteration, we probably want to go Storms. So we are going to go all the way up to Alteration 5 to get Storm, which means we're going to need Evocation of some variety, probably up to Lightning Bolt at 2 or Thunder Strike at 4. And that's going to be our main combat magic. From construction, we already mentioned there's various items that are pretty good for us. Enchant can also be a pretty important one. Gives us True Shot. That would help out our semi-blind, cross-eyed crossbowmen. Also has Ignite Arrows here, which could be pretty useful for us, along with Envenom Arrows. Crossbows generally can poke through armor, so makes the Envenom a little bit better than it is when you're using them with like short bows. Can be pretty nice there. Cloud Trapeze, we do have Air 2 mages. However, they're not very thuggy, so I doubt you're jumping into like solo an army, but you could jump into support an army, or if this is your prophet, to Cloud Trapeze to a throne or something. It definitely has some uses there. We also get our mount buffs from this line, which could be good for our Mouflon. Thaumaturgy, I'm not too in love with Thaumaturgy on this nation. We don't have a lot of the good stuff. Yeah, I'm not thinking we're going very far down that. However, blood magic. We definitely are a very strong blood nation. Ironically enough, we don't have any national blood, however. So what are you going to be doing here? Well, we can do some various stuff that everyone can do, but the ones I found most useful were summon imps, ironically enough, are not too bad when you have good blood mages and good income. Those are just very disruptive. Next up, we want to look at Agony. Can be rather useful. It gives you a major fear effect on an AoE 4+. That's a pretty dang strong fear. Crossbreeding, as mentioned, the Acrobelts do have adept crossbreeder, so that might be something useful. Bloodlust is another very good one. This gives you a battlefield-wide buff that increases the strength of demons. I believe that's a +4? If it's not +4, it's +2. Either way, totally worth it if you have demons on the field. More importantly for us is Bind Storm Demon. Our Signita can do this right out of the box. 2 blood, 2 air, 10 blood slaves, and we get 1 Storm Demon. I'll show you that chassis once we get out of here, but this is very good and probably going to be the backbone of our strategy. We're going to want to do Storm, we're going to want to do Lightning, and we're going to want to do Air Elemental / Storm Demon. So we're very Storm centered right now. In addition, at Blood 4, we get Blood Fecundity, and we can natively cast this quite easily. This is the reason that we might want to put labs in non-forts. If you can get a piece of terrain up to 4 growth, you can have a chance to transform it from a plain into a forest. Remember, we have Forest Recruit Cap, which would otherwise be a cap-only mage. Or if you go to Growth 5, then you can take a plains or farm up to a forest for the same reason. So I do think this is worthwhile. I think you need to decide when you're making your god if you want to go for Growth 2 or growth 3, whether you want to transform farms or plains into farms or plains and farmlands into forests. Either way, very, very powerful. Anybody who can do blood fecundity easily and is a blood hunter will definitely like this. And it's really cheap. Its duration's 1 month plus 1 per extra blood slave. It only costs 10. So, like, let's do like 30 or 40 blood slaves will be the entire game for most games. Quite nice. Remember, population also is extra income, is also extra recruitment points, and it's not something that you can directly affect in most cases. So this is a very good way to do that. And I think this is an argument for rushing Blood 4 on this nation. We have Storm Demons, the Bloodlust, and the Blood Fecundity all right here. Could definitely be worthwhile. Beyond that, the next one I would look at is Demon Knights. We can do these on certain Akabeds that get Earth 2. These are pretty good, but they're really overpriced, I feel. 15 blood slaves for one of these? Yeah, I don't know. That's rather hard. You also can do Summon Ill Earth. This is a like blood earth elemental. Interesting combat one. Rain of Toads is a pretty dang powerful remote attack spell. Unrest plus 40, Misfortune plus 3, Disease chance plus 4. If you get in range of a capital or a major research lab, 3 turns of this and they are maxed out on Unrest, so they can't recruit anything. They're sitting at tons of Misfortune, and their mages are picking up diseases. This is absolutely crippling if you can get in range to spam it on somebody. Next, we have Bloodletting. That's another good one. Entire battlefield takes damage and it does a life drain. So if you are stronger than the enemy, you can do that and freak them out. Last one I wanted to call out, Blood Rain. Blood Rain is a battlefield-wide, continuously targets enemies with Frighten 1, so up to max -5 morale loss. So between this and hitting them with the Agony spell, you could do some very strong fear plays, even if you don't take fear on your blessing. Let's bring all of that together. So we are a nation that has decent but very specific magic paths. We have blood, and we're good at blood, but no national blood spells. And we have decent line troops that have some elemental resistance. We have a decent sacred that is very usable, but he is cap only. So I think we are a nation that, generally speaking, wants really strong scales. And for your pretender, you either want a defensive titan that can keep you safe if somebody rushes you because they're worried about you going into blood. You want a rainbow sight searcher to give yourself some further versatility, something like extra fire so we could summon in flame spirits to do flaming arrows for us would be really handy. Or you just want a utility god, and that's kind of what I went with in this game here. I do want to show off a battle. This was a throne battle at a level, what were you? Level 2 throne. I remember to save it this time. This is an IP. This one. So this, I think, shows off most of what you're going to do as a middle-aged Pyrene. So I've got a large force of greatswords in the front as my blockers. I've got 2 big groups of storm demons as my main damage. I brought my god into this. I've got my sacreds on a flank, and I've got a couple different mages doing various battlefield things. So we'll let this play for a second. So tons and tons of lightning from the storm demons coming in. You can see all of these lightning strikes going off. We're summoning in some imps to buy us time. And there comes the storm. So for me, I built this pretender to cast storm specifically, so I didn't have to Sabbath up to do storms. And storm is really powerful. Notice I didn't bother bringing any crossbows because I knew I was going to do that. Having storm means that our storm power on the storm demons is on, which gives them +3 strength. I also have bloodlust running, so there's the +4. So we have +7 strength at the moment. We look at the lightning damage here. Range 40, precision 3, fatigue cost 5. It's going to take us a hot minute before we fatigue out. And wherever those land is a small shock. 19 damage, you can see here, is nothing shabby, and it is lightning magic. What else do I want to say? We still can fly on our Sorginas. So if the battle goes south, they can fly off the battlefield to safety pretty easily. My god brought in some of our remote spell summons. So these are those. And they're just running on in there. Overall, very, very powerful. Do note there is the wind guide spell. If you do want to bring crossbows, will help protect against storm. So if you wanted to include crossbows in your strategy, you could here. And you could just see those storm demons. I mean, look at that. So many people are stunned. We're hitting all over the place. They are storm immune, so you don't have to worry about them losing their projectiles. And we're only at 21 fatigue, and we're still just tossing and tossing. Very, very strong summon to have come into combat with you. Definitely worth having that storm. Over here, she's casting regeneration on somebody. Just going to town. So I think this is the base strategy of middle-aged Pyrene, and it's good. The problem is this is your main strategy. So people are going to look at you and they're going to know you're going blood, and they're going to probably take some shock resistance because that's what our mages are good at. We could pivot into blood a little bit, but blood, you need certain cross paths to really have combat magic that's useful there. We could have the Akelarre belts, and they could bring in earth or nature magic, but we're going to have a very, very small amount of those. So one of our big weaknesses is we're very predictable. So there's not a lot you can do around that beyond your god design and maybe getting some other variety in that way. Let's take a look at pretenders. This is the pretender I was using in that test game behind us. This is the woman in red. She is a mother of storms. The reason I like her, and she's a titan, so for people that say I never take titans, here you go. I brought her in as dormant because all we took was shock resistance. I basically wanted to make my Emerald Knights not die to our main strategy, which is lightning spam and storm demons. And 10 shock resistance will definitely help them out on that. Scale-wise, I went full turmoil, and I didn't really have problems with recruitment even at that. And that allowed me to go 2 production, keep our temperature scales neutral, which is our preference, 3 growth. So with 3 growth, remember, I can blood fecundity up to 5, and I can transform plains or farms into forests, 2 fortune, and 2 magic scales. So trying to just really lean into good events and trying to get my research going, good money, despite this having turmoil. That does mean that you need to do a lot of patrolling. Oh, I didn't call it out, but Call of the Wind summons in the bird patrollers. That's probably what you're spending most of your air gems on in the early game, and using those as free patrollers for your blood hunters. They're pretty effective at it. In addition to all that, she comes in with a starting site, and oh, I can't show you here, shoot. Her starting site gives you an air gem. So basically just gives us a air gem income of +2. For other chassis here, we don't have the best spread, although we definitely could have worse. Of note, things that are interesting, we do have access to Virtue. Some people really like Virtue as an awake expander. I struggle with that on this nation. 270 is very expensive. Very, very expensive for that. You could go with a crafter, either the Eldest Cyclops or the Titan of the Forge. Both of those also could up your production scale. So we could go up to production 3. We do have a lot of resource intense units that we want to be using. The reason that I like the Mother of Storms, she comes in with the growth. The growth allows us to go up to that growth 3. There's several other chassis here. We have a lot of growth ones actually, but I like her the most, although you could get a disease hunter, a disease healer from Serpents and Medicine. You could get a Titan of Growth. I'm not in love with that one, but it's there. The Duo of Farming is pretty decent. He is a nature gem generator, if you care about that. He also gives you the dual productivity and growth scale. So if you really want to go heavy scales, he is also, I believe, 98. Yeah, he would make a better geared defensive Titan than the Mother will, but that's fine. If you want something a little bit earlier that doesn't need as much gear, Lord of the Forest could come in. He brings in glamour. We're going to make tons and tons of forests anyways. So he would allow us to summon in Seelie or Unseelie units of the nature glamour crosspathing. That could be really good. Those are great units. We do have the Crystal Soul. We do have Baphomet, both of which are pretty good. And we do get a discount on Baphomet. So for 130 points, a Dominion Strength 4 with Fire, Astral, and Blood could be pretty good. You could get an interesting Bless out of that. Beyond those, yeah, I'm not too in love here. Maybe the Fountain of Blood. He does give you the magic scale, and you maybe blood hunt your capital with that. It's possible. Beyond the blessing I showed, I do want to show off one more. I do want Air 4. That allows me to build air boosters. With an air booster, somebody else can bootstrap themselves up to do storms. And with the other boosters, we could go up to, I believe is it Banner of Storms? The item that auto storms in combat at construction, I want to say 7. That would be rather nice for us. I do want to show a slightly different version, though, that I may switch to. So I would stick with the 2 shock resistance, but I think I would add recuperation. Those Emerald Knights are pretty darn good, and the one thing that brought them down was just accumulating far, far too many afflictions, and this would fix that. Now, how would we pay for that? It's 60 points for another path. I don't think we're going to go that route. I think in this case, it'd be one or the other. I think 5 or 6 air or 5 or 6 nature just to pay for that. I'm going to go with the air so that she could do some big air stuff we don't normally get to do. You do like Wrathful Skies or something. She also could do a battlefield wipe with lightning. She has 15 naturally, so she'll have 25 with her own bless. And then to pay for that, I think we can basically get what we had. We're going to be dormant. Okay, we lose a scale. We're going to lose 2 scales because we're going to need, I would say, at least 5 here. What would we drop? I think you could drop growth down to 2. This would still allow you to do plains into forests and not farms. Alternatively, maybe we go heat 1. And I would probably take fortune down 1. With 19, unfortunately, that's a gross number of points left over. But I think this might be the better chassis. I don't know. I like the cheapy one. I feel like it does its job as a scales one that, ironically enough, is actually okay in combat because her main role is to just get Storm up. She also comes in with all those magic paths. I want to say almost 40 research. And at the point I got her in year 1, that like doubled my research, which was pretty handy. I may hem and haw on this chassis a little bit more. It's really unfortunate we can't go up 1 more candle. I'll put 2 Ds so I know which is which. The 2D woman in red. So I do think you could go other ones, but that is by far my favorite chassis from here. If you wanted to go for somebody for just variety, Gray Ones is an interesting choice. Different things we don't have access to otherwise. Good research and the ability to split up and do site searching could be pretty handy there. We do have the Master Alchemist if you wanted to do some gems into money. Although I found with such heavy scales, I did not need that on this nation. All right, so in conclusion, Middle-Aged Pyrene, one of the newest nations in Dominion 6, and a very, very fun nation. I really enjoyed this one. For a blood nation that doesn't have national blood spells, I do find them very good. Maybe that's because I don't often do Storm Demons, so I found that kind of sort of fresh. But I like good line troops. We have the crossbows, we have armor, we have good heavy cav that is sacred. We have all right mages, but very usable in combat, quite fun. We have a god build I found cheap and fun, which is always a bonus. So yeah, a very, very cool nation. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play in late age. I know they go even deeper into blood and demons. They do not have a good time of things. Okay, please, as always, leave a like on the video if you're enjoying the content. That helps me out more than you know. If you're not already a subscriber, maybe today's the day that I have earned your subscription. I'd love to see you come in here and join the discussion and check out some of the other content on the channel. If you'd like to support the channel further, we have super thanks turned on. We have super chats if you join me live, and we have channel memberships. If you become a channel member, not only to other perks, but you get early access to the pregame videos such as this, generally speaking, about a week early. And sometimes there's some other members first content on the channel that just varies depending on the content I'm putting out. All right, builders, get out there and build a fence because we got to keep this goat away from the ladies. Babble out.